Hey guys, I'm back again and I'm here to do my June reading wrap up. Now, I did a really good job in June of staying my ass off of Netflix and actually doing a lot more reading. So this month I read 7 books. Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag. I wouldn't say it's the most successful month of reading from the star rating outcome. The average star rating outcome of this group of books that I read is 2.7 stars. Yeah, you pick books and you hope they're going to be good, and then you realize, no, that ain't it. But anyway, this being said, let's get started. So the first book I'm going to talk about is this one, which is called Unlearning Race, Self-Portrait in Black and White by Thomas Chatterton Williams. Now, this is him right here, just so you can have an idea. Okay, so Mr. Williams is the product of a white mother, I think from the West Coast, and a black father. I think his father was somewhere from the South, I think. I'm not sure. And so he grew up what a lot of black people grow up with, the idea that one drop of black blood makes you black. So he is mixed race. And then one day he comes to France and he falls in love with a French woman who's white, gets married to her. And then that whole idea of one drop of black blood makes you black, he starts to question that once he sees his first child being born. So he has 2 children. I think he has a girl and a boy. And when his first child was born, she came out and she was just as white and blue-eyed as his wife. And the son, I think, is the same. And this made him reflect on this idea about how this idea of one drop of black blood doesn't reflect enough the person. And looking at the whiteness in the skin of his children made him want to question this idea. Now, this being said, I get what he was trying to say in the book, I think, but I don't know if I totally agree with it. And I feel like he's kind of influenced because he is living in France, where this idea is a little different. The concept of being mixed race is different. Like, they have a name for someone that is mixed race here in France, which is called métis, which is half this and half something else. And so I think he's a little bit influenced by this idea of wanting to move through the world and not have to be quantified or what I say, designated as, oh, she's black or she's white. Oh yeah, she has a black father, so she's black. And he's saying that we should stop doing that. We should stop, trying to, put people in boxes and identify them and that kind of thing. And I get where he's coming from, but there's something about it that kind of bothered me, because he's also living a life differently, because he is half black and half white. So he's already, and he's very fair skin. So he's also living a type of privilege around the way he looks, as opposed to me as a black woman, but also married to a white man, raising 2 mixed race daughters. I kind of don't see it exactly like the way he does. I see where he's coming from, and I see he's trying to do something he's trying to advocate for something that is quite utopic in the idea. And it's something that we are not there yet. I don't think we are there yet anywhere in the world, in my opinion. But I found it an interesting read all the same. But it's something that I think would be fantastic to read in a book club, to discuss more details about this idea of race and our different perceptions of race. Yeah, I feel like it's worth the discussion, although I don't quite totally agree with him. But yeah. So this one, I gave it 3 stars. It's a very quick read, and it's because it's very, very short. It comes in at 169 pages. He writes very well. I think he's like also a journalist. Yeah, I recommend that you check it out if you're interested in this idea. Okay, the next book on my list was How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents by Julia Alvarez. Now, this is my first Julia Alvarez book. And I like this one, but I didn't love it. And I feel like one of the main things that kind of threw me off with this novel is time, and how the time is perceived and written for me as the reader to understand it. So this is a book where we have Yolanda and her 3 sisters. It talks about their family unit, but it begins in the Dominican Republic when there is only the mom, the dad, and 2 sisters. And they have to leave with the help of a CIA agent, leave the Dominican Republic because it is under the dictatorship of Trujillo. So they are aided and able to leave Dominican Republic and go and live in the US. And then from there, they have 2 other daughters. But what we see is the story of immigration. So we see how the father, who's a doctor back in Dominican Republic, he can't be a doctor in the US. How they have to live on very little money, and how they have to adapt to the language. And for some reason, language is also something that is a problem to a certain extent. But each daughter has some issue that contributes to I guess you could say, to the harmony of this family. And the father, he kind of rules the family with an iron fist, in the sense where he wants his girls to respect him, and he wants his girls to live a very particular life, like the life that they would be living in the Dominican Republic. He wants his daughters to live that life here in the US. And as a reader, we can see how that is completely impossible. Their ideas around the roles of women and what is expected of them and all of that is also included within the story. As a whole, I liked the story. I thought it was a good story, but there are some things that I could not really grasp well, because I don't think she goes about, I don't think she goes about telling the story in a way that as readers we can grasp, understand the passing of time, and understanding the difficulty of writing a story that includes so many characters, but trying to give a very personal story about each one of the girls. It was not done as well as I would have liked to have seen it done. If you want to know more about what I think about this, you can check out Christy and I's podcast episode. When it comes out, we did our discussion on that. And I think this podcast episode won't come out though until next year. But if you want to know more about it, about what we think about it, then head on over to the podcast when it comes out. But I gave this a 3 stars, and I would definitely read something else by Alvarez. Okay, the next book on my list was this one right here, which is The Chiffon Trenches by Andre Leontali. Now, this is a memoir that was written by Andre Leontali that came out in 2020. Andre Leontali isn't with us anymore, and he was one of the first Black presence in the haute couture fashion world that was making marks, and he was writing articles. But not only that, he had a flair of his own. He was a very stylish man. So this is one of the pictures of him when he was young. Now, problem is, this book has a lot of interesting things said in it, but it's not written well. It's not written well at all. He wrote this book, and what I think he should have done was he should have spoken into a a recorder or something and gave all of the details and the different stories and everything, and he should have given that to a writer and had them write this story for him. Because what we do get out of the story is this man was extremely lonely, and his job consisted of him riding the coattails of some pretty selfish, indignant, mean, selfish people. And as as a journalist, as a fashion journalist, he has to hobnob and move with all these people in order to get stories and to do collabs and things like that. At the same time, we see that Andre Leon Tollier was a very generous man, and he was a very helpful man, but he was badly treated, and he paid the price for it. But not only that, he suffered some other things in his past that wreaked havoc on him to a certain extent, which made him a very sad person. That was a part that really surprised me, was realizing that this man was probably extremely lonely in the life that he was living. I did enjoy hearing descriptions of the different stars and what they were wearing and who was stylish and who he really liked and that kind of thing. I found that it was very interesting that he did not put one word about Kim Kardashian in here, and that just said everything to me. But I wouldn't say that this is one that I would just run out and get and read. I would, maybe pick it up on audio because he reads the audio. But as a whole, this book, the fact that it was poorly written is the thing that it just annoyed me so much. But I'll say I gave it a 3 stars because I feel like it's something that could be interesting to read, especially if you're going to be working in this, kind of fake gold dust kind of profession, as in fashion. So yeah, The Chiffon Trenches, 3 stars. Okay, the next book on my list was this one right here, Le Rêve by Émile Zola. This is book 16 in the Rougon-Macquart series. Now, this is a book that starts off with a character who's called Angelique, and in the beginning of the story, she is like roaming the streets. It's freezing cold. She has nowhere to go, and she winds up on a couple's doorstep, and she's freezing, shaking, starving, the whole thing. So they decide to take her in, and they take her in and they feed her and they try to get to know who she is. And that's when they realize that she should be living with someone else and that she doesn't have her parents, because she has been living with like a nurse. And so they decide to take care of her and everything. And before they actually decide to try to adopt her, because at the time in the French law that she couldn't be adopted until she was like an adult, which means that there is a parent out there that could take her back at some point. So the father, the to-be father, I think his name is Hubert, decides to go and see if he can find the mother of Angelique. And so he goes on this trip, and sure enough, he tracks down the nurse who gives him the name of someone else, and he goes to someone else, and he finally finds Angelique's mother. Now, all the people, that he meets along the way, they say how horrible the mother is. Now, we know the mother because we read about her in previous books, and her name is Sidonie Rougon, and she's crazy, okay? She got prostitution going on, like she's dabbing and dealing with some, not so nice things. So when he finally does catch up with the mother, he just observes from a distance and he sees the seediness and the stuff that's going on at the mother's place. And he says, oh, hell no, her mother's dead. So he goes back to his wife and he says, I can't find the mother. She's dead. And we're going to take her in. So they take her in mostly because they don't have children of their own. They haven't been able to have children because she's had several miscarriages, and they have a story as well. The fact that their union was not blessed by her mother. Her mother basically cursed them and said, you'll never be happy because you should not be together or whatever. And so it's almost like they're cursed. So they take in Angelique, and from there, the story goes. Now, what I absolutely did not like about this story is that it does not fit into the Rougon-Macau series. I don't care what anybody has to say. The Rougon-Macau series is supposed to be more based on realism, and this is more like romanticism or something. It's just crazy, this book. Now, this book is on the heels of the previous book, which I read with Anna, which was called La Terre, or in English, I think it's called The Land. And that book was so much full of it was full of incest, rape, abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, all kinds of stuff, craziness. And it was incessant, and it went on and on and on. And I mean, it was psychologically draining, okay? Psychologically draining. Now, when that book came out, La Terre, the public was just, they all gobbled it up, but they were all outraged at the violence that was leveled in that book. And if I'm not mistaken, when it was published in the UK, La Terre, in the 19th century, the British publishing company was accused of, publishing obscenity and stuff like that. So there was a lot of backlash on La Terre. And because of that, Zola decided to, say, oh, okay, I'm going to calm down. I'm going to show you that I can write, a book where everybody is, perfect and lovely and nice and whatever. And so he writes this mess right here. It's only 240 pages, but boy, what a bore. That's all I'm going to say. What a bore. What the not realism is going on here. No, I highly would not recommend this one. And I stand by saying this book does not fit the Rougon-Macau series. So it got a 2 stars for me. Okay, the next book I read was this one right here, The Bridge of Beyond by Simone Schwartz-Bart. And this is a Caribbean read that we did in the Read So Lit Patreon book club. And this is one of those books that is kind of like a generational story about women. It starts off with this beautiful family tree here. And basically we have the book is split into 2 parts. First part is My People. The second part is, I think it's Story of My Life. And we're following the story of Tulume. And so we see at the beginning of the story, I think it's the mother. I think her name is Victory. I can't remember really the names right now. But she was just freed from slavery. And all of this is taking place on the island of Guadeloupe. And from there, then we have other stories of other women and what happens to them. And like, I think the mother has a sister who winds up going off to marry somebody, and something bad happens to them. And then we see Tamule, who has a very active, full life, but yet she's not raised essentially by her mother. Her mother basically abandons her and leaves her with her grandmother. And from there, that grandmother takes her and molds her and gives her all the information that she needs to become a strong woman. And I feel like this is one of those stories. It's kind of slow moving, but it's beautifully told. There's these beautiful scenes of the island of Guadeloupe. So just plush green, and I mean, you can almost see it and smell it the way it's described in the book. And after that, you see the series of men that she gets involved with, and doesn't go well. And you see how she becomes stronger with each difficult situation. And when it ends on a note. I wanted it to keep going on, but it can't keep going on. But it is so brilliantly told, and it's molded in a way that in a way that we're not used to when we're reading a story. It's not told in a typical American way that stories are told, but it does have the ring of oral tradition. So the stories are slow moving, and they do feel like, your grandma is sitting you down and telling you a story about her aunt or her sister or her mother or her grandmother. And I feel like that's one of the big things that's fantastic about this book. And I don't think this is one of the Caribbean books that's spoken about very much, but I highly recommend it. And Simone Schwartz-Bart is a very good writer, and a writer that you should definitely check out. So I gave this one a 4 stars. Highly recommend this one. Okay, the next book on my list is this one right here, which is The God of Good Looks. And oh my goodness, I was so happily surprised for this one. This is the book that was chosen for the Caribathon read along for the month of June in honor of Caribbean Heritage Month. And that was spearheaded by Karen Runwright Reads and Peter from Comfycozyup. I devoured this book in like 2 days or something. I thought it was so well done. So we have here the story of, I think her name is Bianca. I think it is. And Bianca is a young girl who's from Trinidad, and she's just come back from the UK, and she comes back and she gets subsequently involved with a man that she shouldn't be involved with. He's married, but she doesn't know this in the beginning, and she basically falls for his attention, and he's taking her places, but he's also having sex with her, and spoiling her, giving her gifts and things. And then the wife finds out about her, outs her publicly, and then the job that she had, or the better job possibilities she could have had, they dissipate because she's on an island and everybody's going to know who she is. The wife has basically had her, blackballed. Then she meets up with Obadiah, and Obadiah has a company where it's all around fashion, and makeup and making women look good. And so they meet, and their first meeting turns out to be not so nice because they have ideas about each other. And what we see is a story about two people coming together with particular ideas about the other and how that turns out. Now, the best things about this book are that you really feel like you're part of the Caribbean. Brianna McIver is giving you the looks. She's giving you the food. She's giving you the culture. She's giving you the patois. She's giving you everything. And not only that, but you can relate to what is happening to the different characters in the book. Not only that, you can tell that author has really realized how to completely make a character in, full 3D. The characters are not flat at all. Even the ones that are on the page for a minimum amount of time are fully fleshed out. And that is really great to see in the book. I highly recommend it. I had a good time reading it, and I had a great time discussing it with Karen and PETA. I will link here, or I should say, I'll link below in the description box, the discussion that they had on The God of Good Looks. Can't wait to see what Brianna McIver writes next. Highly recommend this one. Go get The God of Good Looks. Okay, last but not least, book number 7 was this baby right here, Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee. This was a read-along that I spearheaded this month of June with Michael from Michael Reads. And yeah, we have a whole discussion over there, a live discussion. Go hit my live section and you can go check it out. There are spoilers, so I wouldn't check it out if you're planning on reading the book and haven't read it yet. I would say wait until you read it to check out the live. Otherwise, if you have read it, go ahead on and enjoy it. There are spoilers through it, but we had a great discussion, and I think we've thoroughly discussed the book. So I'm not going to get into much of it here. You can go over there and see the details. But basically, this is another book which is cruxed on generations and Koreans living in Japan, and how over generations the Koreans managed to develop and survive and continue on, and how the lineage continues on in Japan, and how they are treated like second-class citizens. They're treated like they haven't even been living there for generations. It's crazy. This book had everything going for it, in my opinion, the first 50% of the book. Absolutely love the first 50% of the book, written to a fault. All the details, all the feels, everything. First half, mwah, mwah, mwah. Okay. Second half, this is where I fell off. I fell off the horse. Okay. It just wasn't doing it the second half for me. There were so many things that weren't filled out or detailed. They were just sort of skimmed through really quickly. She brings out a horde of characters in the second half of the book. So a few of them, I'm not sure why they're there, because they don't really need to be there. There's some scenes that don't really need to be there, but they're there. And then there are things that aren't fully described in a way for me to understand some things. And I felt that was a little disappointing. I must admit, I was a little disappointed with the second half of the book. That being said, I think I gave it a 3.5 stars. I feel like it is something that, you should read, because it does. The best things about the book are the references that deal directly to the Koreans living in Japan and the racism and things that they go through. That part, yeah, spot on. Very good. I just needed her to cut out the fat in the second half and give me some more details. The same detail like she gave me in the first half of the book, I wanted to see the same in the second half of the book. So that's it. That's all I have to say about Pachinko. Like I said, go check out the live, because Michael and I get into it, and we get into it deep, and we get in all the details and everything. So that's it. Those are all the books that I read the month of June. Let me know what you think. Have you read any of these? Are you interested in reading any of these? Let's talk about it, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye.